All right, welcome to The Explainer. We know AI is everywhere, but what happens when it makes a huge decision about you? We're not talking about cool new apps today. We're talking about your actual rights and how a really important California law is forcing AI to be accountable. So let's dive right in. Just think about this for a second. You find the perfect job, you know you're qualified, but you get a rejection. And the thing is, a person didn't make that call, an algorithm did. So what if that algorithm was biased against you for reasons that are totally illegal? This isn't some far-off sci-fi plot. It's a real issue that regulators are dealing with as we speak. To really get what's going on, we have to start with the law. Because in California, the absolute explosion of AI has run head-on into a really powerful Civil Rights Act. And believe me, the shockwaves are hitting any company that uses this kind of tech. Okay, so the law at the very center of this whole thing is the Unruh Civil Rights Act. For decades, it's been the law that guarantees everyone gets equal access to business services. But here is the real game changer. Regulators have made it official that business services now includes any decision made by an AI. That's huge. And when we say everyone, the law's protections are super broad. We're talking race, gender, disability, religion, sexual orientation. The list goes on. This means an AI can't legally discriminate based on any of these things. And here's the real kicker. It doesn't even matter if the bias was accidental. It's the final outcome that counts in the eyes of the law. And if you had any doubt, just listen to this quote directly from the regulators. It makes the state's position absolutely crystal clear. Things like fairness and accountability, they aren't just nice ideas. They are legal requirements. For any business using AI, this isn't optional. It's mandatory. So if the law is that clear, why is this so hard to get right? I mean, why is preventing bias such a challenge? Well, to answer that, we've got to look at where the bias is actually coming from. So what even is AI bias? You know, it's not some random glitch in the system. It's a systemic, repeatable problem where an algorithm is consistently unfair to a certain group. And this bias can seep in from all over the place, from the data it learns from the way it was designed, or just by reflecting the biases that already exist out there in the real world. It's probably easiest to think of it as a three-part problem. First, bias can be baked right into the training data. If you feed an AI biased info from the past, guess what? It's going to learn to be biased. Second, it can get built into the model's design itself, maybe because of assumptions the creators made. And finally, bias can pop up even after deployment, when the AI starts making real-world decisions and creates these damaging feedback loops. Okay, so how do you actually find this bias when it's hidden inside the code? You run what's called an audit. Let's walk through a pretty straightforward example to see exactly what that looks like in practice. Let's picture a really common scenario. A company is using an AI to sift through tons of resumes to decide who gets a job interview. For the next few minutes, we're going to put on our auditor hats and test this model to see if it's fair. First things first, we have to look at who's even applying for the job in the first place. So our applicant pool is about 58% male, 40% female, and 2% who identify as non-binary or other. This is our baseline, right? This is the data the AI has to work with. The very first test we're going to run is for something called demographic parity. Now, that's a fancy term, but the idea is actually really simple. Does the group of people who get an interview look like the group of people who applied? If the AI is picking people from each group at about the same rate, great. If it's not, well, that's a huge red flag. Okay, so the numbers are in, and here are the results. Let's just focus on that first column, selection rate. The AI is moving 60% of male applicants forward for an interview. But look at this. Only 45% of female applicants get through, and it drops to just 35% for non-binary applicants. Whoa, that's our first big sign of trouble. Then you look at the next column, TPR, or true positive rate. It basically tells us how good the AI is at finding people who are actually qualified. It's spotting qualified men 90% of the time, but its accuracy drops off for the other groups. That is a serious, serious problem. And when you visualize this data, the problem just becomes impossible to ignore. This chart shows a pretty shocking difference in who gets selected.
You can see as plain as day that male applicants are getting interviews at a way higher rate than anyone else.
So, the verdict from our little audit is clear as day. This model is showing significant bias against female and non-binary applicants. And remember, under California's Unruh Act, that's not just a technical problem, it's a potential violation of the law. Finding the problem is one thing. But now, for the important part. How do we actually fix it? This next part is all about solutions, about moving away from just finding bias and toward building fair systems right from the start. Fixing this really requires a fundamental shift in how people think. For years, the goal was always accuracy first. Just build the most technically powerful model you can and, well, worry about the messy consequences later. Now the law demands a fairness by design approach. And that means you have to make sure your AI is fair and legal from day one, not as some kind of afterthought. So what does that look like in the real world? Well, it involves a pretty clear set of actions. And this isn't just about writing code. It's about people and processes. It means getting your leadership on board. It means building diverse teams that can spot blind spots others might miss. It also means you've got to be transparent, document everything for compliance, and constantly monitor the AI even after it goes live to make sure bias doesn't creep back in. These are really the building blocks of AI you can actually trust. Okay, let's zoom out one last time and talk about the big picture. What does this whole new legal world demand from everyone involved? So what are the new rules of the road? It really boils down to 4 key things. First, your AI can't hurt or disadvantage people, even by accident. Second, you have to be able to show your work to explain how it made a decision. Third, you have to tell people when an AI is making a call about them. And fourth, you have to be actively looking for and fixing bias. That's the new standard, period. And all of this brings us to what might be the single most important point of this entire explainer. Fairness isn't just a nice-to-have feature you can tack onto an AI later on. It's the legal and social foundation that everything else absolutely has to be built on. And that leaves us with one final, and I think really critical question. AI is already making huge decisions about our jobs, our health, our money. So the challenge for all of us, for developers, for companies, for society, is how do we make sure the code we write doesn't just repeat the biases of our past, but actually helps build the kind of fair and equitable society we all say we want to live in?